Hi everyone, welcome back to the Hideaway. Hope you're all okay. I picked up these bedside drawers from Facebook Marketplace for £5. I thought it'd be quite a good upcycling project. So the lady I bought them off said she'd upcycled them herself, liquor paint, which has now started to chip off. So I'm just going to strip it all back to bare bones, and then maybe do something a little bit different just on the top. So let's get into it. So on closer inspection, the drawers are in pretty decent condition. There are these crystal-like handles which I'll look to replace, but there doesn't seem to be many repairs that need to be made, so I was pretty happy. There might have been the odd chip here and there. And there was a bit of paint on the back, but I'll look to remove that. I've got some old 6mm MDF that should do the trick. So here I'm using the Bartolene Paint Predator paint and varnish stripper, laying it on with a brush relatively thick, give it half hour and then come back to it to start removing the finish. Once I've removed the majority of the paint, I use an abrasive pad and some meths just to remove any excess paint stripper. I do this on the entire carcass and the drawers, and then it's ready for some sanding. I started sanding with 120 grit, but I was struggling to get some of the finish off, so I went a little bit lower to 80 grit. As you can see, I didn't remove all the paint off the edges of the drawers. It was a bit difficult to remove with the tools I had, so I decided to sand them off, as you can see here. Some of you might be thinking, why don't you use your multi-tool for sanding that's in shot here? The reason being is I melted the head several weeks ago, so it needs a new one, so it was out of action. I didn't use my detail sander as the batteries were charging at the time, so I just decided to use a DeWalt orbital sander, and it did a decent job. I was fairly careful when I was going around making sure not to leave any kind of indents. At this point during sanding the drawers, I took the opportunity to fill in the holes where the old handles were, and then I give it another sand once it was dry. Then move on to sanding the carcasses to 120 grit. Wow, it's really hot today, and that was a lot of sanding. But I think they're ready to go. Next step is painting the drawers, painting the carcass, but I'm going to leave the top. There might be either a light stain or maybe an oil to go on a little bit later, but it won't be painted. But what I'm going to do is I've got a geometric shape that looks pretty cool, so I'm going to transfer that onto here, and then I'm going to route it out and then fill it with resin. I thought that would be just a little bit different, so I thought I'd give it a go. I've done that sort of thing before, where I've routed out kind of lettering or patterns or shapes or whatever, and filled it with resin before. I'll show you some photos of what I've done before, but I thought it'd just be a little bit different, a bit cool, so I'm going to give it a go. So I'm probably just going to give this a once over just with some white spirit, just to get rid of some of the dust from all the sanding, but then on to the next step, routing out this pattern. I'll show you what it looks like in a second, and then we'll get to it. So this is the pattern that I found. I just googled like geometric shape, and it just came up with a load of different kind of designs and stuff, and I just saw this one. I thought, that could look pretty cool on the top. So I just printed it out, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use Mod Podge, I think, just to transfer it from here and put it kind of face down on the top. Wait for that to dry, and then it should transfer a lot of the ink. So I've got my outline, so I'll probably just do it that way. So these are the patterns. So that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm deliberating using this base for my router. It can be quite good to have these to hold on to whilst you're kind of routing, certainly kind of designs and stuff. So I'm deliberating whether to use this, just for a little bit of extra control. So I'm going to transfer the image onto the top of the drawers using carbon paper. I've already done the one, as you can see, kind of here. I like using carbon paper. It transfers the image directly onto the wood. So I've used Mod Podge before, where you can kind of transfer the image onto the top of the wood, but because of the remnants of the paper that's left, it can clog up the route a bit. So my preference most of the time is using carbon paper, and as you can see, it transfers pretty well. It can take a little bit of time to kind of draw it on, but it's I think it's worth it in the end. The router bits that I'm going to be using, they're actually CNC bits. I've got one in the router already, and this is kind of one of them. This is an engraving bit, and this is an 1/8 of an inch shaft, so I needed a collet to convert the 1/8 of an inch to a 1/4 of an inch to fit my Ryobi router, which is the one I'm going to be using, which I'll show you in a minute. And then that will be done for the engraving bit will be done for the outlines here. And then to take out the rest of the material, it will be these end mill bits, which this is kind of one of them. And maybe another smaller one for some of the narrower sections here. So that's what I'll be using. I'm going to use my Ryobi palm router for this, and I've changed the base plate, as you can see. I've got this from I think it was Amazon. Can't remember where I got the base plate from, but I'll dig out the link and I'll pop it in the description. It's really good. It's nice and big, as you can see, but it's also got a handle, so I can use that for a little bit of extra control, which is really useful. I'm going to set the depth to engrave the initial outline to, it'll be about 3 mil. I don't really need to go much deeper. If I go much deeper, it's just a bit of a waste of resin, which is what I'm going to use. I'm not going to paint it. I'm going to use resin on the top. So 3 mil is perfectly fine. So I'll set the depth of that on here. It'd be the same for the end mill bit when I clear out the rest of the material. So I'm just going to transfer the other image onto the other set of drawers, and then we're good for routing. So it's slow and steady wins the race here. I know there are other YouTubers out there that are almost human CNCs, but I'm not that skillful at this point, so I'm just going nice and slow. I'm only going about 3 mil, as I mentioned earlier on, and I'm working from the inside out, so starting more on the inside and going out to the outside line. That just gives me a little bit of clearance just in case I misroute, and I can clean it up with either a rotary tool or a bit of sandpaper. Took a little while to get it all done, but was worth it in the end. So here I'm using my Dremel rotary tool with a glass engraving bit. It's actually really useful because it doesn't cut into the wood too much, and it's really handy to sharpen up the lines anywhere I misrouted or just need the lines flattening out a little bit and getting into the corners that I missed. I then get a little bit of sandpaper just on a thin bit of plywood just to flatten the lines even more so they're a little tidier, and to go along the lines and the edges again just to sharpen everything up a little so it's all ready for the resin. Once I've finished doing this, I just give the top another sand and then we're all ready for the resin fill. Before I do the resin, I'll start on the painting. I decided to do this in French Oak Blackjack. It's a satin finish black colour. And this is where some of you might think, oh my god, you're mad, painting it black. And I appreciate you may completely disagree with my colour choice. What on earth is he doing, you might say. But this colour is quite popular at the moment. Black with a wood finish somewhere else on the piece, whether it's the top or whether it's the drawers, and you paint the carcass, and they sell really well, so I just went with it. I know there might be quite a few of you that think that's not the way to go and would leave it as wood colour. But these were £5 for both of them on Facebook Marketplace. They were cheap as chips, not that old. It's not as though they're kind of antiques, so it was worth a pop. It's a little bit different, I appreciate that. So I was trying to get a little bit creative. So when you see the final result, I think they look pretty good. So let's see how things look once the resin's in and the new handles are on. So before I start on the resin fill, I spray the routed out shape with a clear lacquer. It can help seal the wood, so when I do the resin pour, it reduces the amount of bleed into the wood. I'll wait for it to dry and then crack on with the pour. For this pour, I'm using Craft Resin's Crystal Clear with some black mica powder. I'll leave links in the description to both. Craft Resin is pretty good. I've used it before and tends to be my go-to resin, but I have used others. I tend to warm up the resin in a warm bath first. It can help with mixing as it reduces viscosity and sometimes reduces air bubbles. I decided to add some metallic golden ink to the resin. I was hoping to get like a golden sheen, as you can kind of see a little bit here. So it's time for the pour. I went relatively slowly, as you can see here. I wasn't too bothered about spilling over. I was hoping the lacquer would take care of any bleed down into the wood. And then I use a craft stick just to push the resin into the engraving. I then do the same on the other engraving. And then use a torch burner to get rid of any surface air bubbles. Right, time for sanding and my scary Bane costume. Initially it's just getting off the resin, the overflow resin. I'm using quite a low grit here, I think it was about an 80 grit just to get rid of it. I then go over it a little bit later with higher grits. Took a little while, but it came off okay in the end. So after all of the excess resin was off, it was time to sand the shape, going through the grits. So 240, 400, 600, 1500 and 3000. So I go at a fairly steady pace and I go with the grain twice and against the grain twice. I do that with each grit. Between each grit I give it a wipe over. This part is sped up. When I get to about 400 grit, I add some water just to wipe away some of the residue. I then add some more water for a wet sand for the higher grits. You just get a better finish with the resin with a wet sand on the higher grits. So time to add the handles. I got these handles from Amazon, and I also got this drill hole locator from Amazon. I'll leave links to both in the description. I'm just finding the centre and a very small little pilot hole for the handles. So time for the finish. I'm using Danish oil for this. Just using a lint-free cloth with some cotton wool to make a cotton pad, and slowly applying across the piece to give it a nice shine. Wow, finally done. Took a while this one, but was really enjoyable. Router engraving can sometimes take a little while. It's the process of doing the engraving is one thing, but then the waiting for the resin to set and cure just adds a little bit of time to the process. But was fun nonetheless. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it and you've enjoyed the process. I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love reading your feedback. So yeah, so please like and subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. I've got a few new projects coming up. I've got another flip that I'm doing. I've got another restoration that I'm doing. I've got another router engraving that I'm doing, and I've got a woodworking project that could be really, really fun. So keep an eye out for that. So yeah, all I can say is thanks for watching. Really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.